Okay, so there's a lot of little rules here to help you. What I always tell students to do is highlight the call the parallel lines the fence. So anything inside the fence are what we call interior angles. So let's see. Angles 3 and 4 and 5 and 7 would be interior angles. And then exterior would be the angles outside of the fence. So remember, the fence is your two parallel lines. So exterior means outside. Your exterior angles would be 1, 2, 6, and 8. Okay, so we know that angle 2 is 107. Another relationship here is what we call vertical angles. So vertical angles kind of form an X. So your vertical angles are for example, 1 and 4 are vertical angles of each other, and then 2 and 3, and 6 and 7, and then 5 and 8. Those are all your vertical angles. Now the rule about vertical angles are they're congruent, which means they're equal or the same. So whatever you get for angle 1, it would have the same measurement as 4. 2 and 3 will be the same, 5 and 8 will be the same, and 6 and 7 will be the same. Now we also have I think they call it supplementary. I'm seeing if that was on there. Yeah. So you have supplementary angles, which add up to 180. So supplementary they're always going to add up to 180. So I believe I'm trying to see if there was any on there. Yeah, okay. On the test, supplementary angles here would be 1 and 2 would add up to 180. They make a straight line when you put them together. 2 and 4, 1 and 3, and 1 and 2, 2 and 4, 1 and 3, 3 and 4. And then, let me take this keyboard off for a second. Okay, so then you have 5 and 7, 5 and 6, 6 and 8, and 7 and 8. They are all supplementary angles. They add up to 180. Let me think if there was anything else. Okay, so now we have what we call alternate exterior. They're going to be on the outside of the fence and opposite of each other. So our alternate exterior, you couldn't pick anything in yellow because those are inside. So they're opposite of each other on the opposite sides. So like 1, you could make an X. So 1 and 6 and 2 and 8, those would be alternate exterior. And alternate exterior are congruent. And alternate interior are congruent. So our alternate interior would be inside the fence. So in the yellow, draw an X. So our alternate interior would be 3 and 5 and 4 and 7. Okay, so that'll kind of help you learn some of the rules. So when you're figuring out how to fill in the missing pieces, there's more than one way to do that. So that's the hard part about teaching this. But let's get started. The way that I would do it is I would just start with what I know. I know this is 107. So since angle 2 is 107 and angle 3, they're vertical angles. See how they form an X? We know vertical angles are equal. So this has to be 107. I know angle 1 and 2 make a straight line, which adds up to 180. So this has to be 73. 1 and 4 are vertical angles because they make an X. So this is 73. But also know that 2 and 4 should add up to a straight line. And 107 plus 73 make a straight line. I would probably... go ahead and fill in 6 because 1 and 6 are alternate exterior. So they're the congruent. And 2 and 8 are alternate exterior. So they're congruent. Also 6 and 8 make a straight line. So they add up to 180. So you can check it. 6 and 7 are vertical angles because they make an X. So this one would be 73. 5 and 8 are vertical angles. So they're the same. So they're congruent. So now I filled in all of my angles. Every straight line on here should add up to 180. And I'm trying to see if there's any rules I left off. Oh, corresponding angles. That means if I took, let me show you how that looks. If I took these angles and placed it on top of these angles, so we would see that 1 corresponds with 7, 2 corresponds with 5, 3 corresponds with 8, and then 4 corresponds with 6. So I'm basically taking this circle of angles and placing it on top of this circle of angles. And I want to say, that corresponding angles are equal or congruent. I think that's right. Corresponding angles. Yes. Okay. So they're congruent. And I'm sure I missed a few things. I think you could do same side interior, and I think the rule here is if they're on the same side, if they're on the same side, like 4 and 5 interior, they're supplementary. So that may be another rule that I left out, but hopefully this will help you. This is really the whole, most of the tests are these rules and knowing what type of angles they are and the rules associated with those angles.